A single Riverside Galleria failure couldn't topple the Grants completely. But what if we struck from within? The day after Ethan was expelled, Richard collapsed from a cerebral hemorrhage and was bedridden. Vanessa and Adrian became the Grants' real rulers. On paper, the family's books were managed by a professional team and looked airtight. After all, they used the same apex advisory that Shaw Group did. Their expertise was top tier in the industry. You could watch it like some brain-dead TV drama and still never spot a flaw. But what if Vivian Shaw had actually gotten hold of Grant Holdings' real ledgers? Vivian and I sat on one side of the negotiation table. Across from us were the composed Margaret Grant and the unruffled Adrian Grant. After Ethan left Grant Holdings, Richard Grant had installed Vanessa Hale in Margaret's place. Now she was the legitimate Margaret Grant. Margaret took a USB drive from her bag and set it on the table. This is every ledger Grant Holdings has. Unvarnished numbers, real losses, real profits, she said. And there's everything they've done wrong, and the people who've been in the same bed as him. Vivian nodded and picked up the drive. I slid a card across the table. Money they couldn't spend in a lifetime. I kept my smile soft. We've already moved part of the assets to the United Kingdom. Once the transfer's clear, our people will contact you on the ground. Margaret smiled with the ease of someone used to being read. Then I'll leave things here to you. I nodded and turned to Adrian. Adrian, I hope your time at the Royal College of Art goes well. After we verified everything, Shaw Group staff escorted Margaret and Adrian out to the earliest flight. That Margaret would hand over Grant Holdings the moment she could was something we'd expected. She'd discovered our move on the eve of Vivian's trip to the Millstone paper mill, but instead of reporting to Richard, she'd summoned Vivian and me to state her terms. She swore she hadn't chosen the life she ended up with. She hated Richard Grant with a white-hot hatred. She could help us get Grant Holdings back, then let us destroy it. In return, she wanted a clean exit for her and her son, a substantial payout, and property in the UK. Vivian did a quick valuation of Grant Holdings and agreed without hesitation. At first, I wondered why Vivian would trust Margaret so readily. Then Vivian handed me Margaret's resume, and the picture became clear. The first half of Margaret's life hadn't been so different from mine. She'd graduated from Columbia University's finance department and had a fiancé who loved her. Richard Grant had set his sights on her, using bribes and threats to force her to give up further study. He'd hired thugs who killed her fiancé and then walked away unscathed. Margaret had been coerced into becoming Richard's personal secretary and lover. She tried to fight, but then she found herself pregnant. For the child, and for herself, she gave in. Richard was overjoyed, and even brought her into the Grant mansion. Later evidence led us to suspect the child probably wasn't Richard's, but her fiancé's. The son likely knew his true parentage and, raised day after day by his mother, grew to hate Richard. Ethan, meanwhile, had no interest in running the business. Given a chance to walk away with everything intact, they snapped it up. With the internal books in our hands, Vivian and I moved like we'd been blessed. In 3 months, we leveled Grant Holdings. Its assets, its clients, its subsidiaries, all became Shaw property. Vivian and I made a name for ourselves in New York City overnight. Nobody expected the Grant Holdings to fall to 2 women in their 30s. Richard, bedridden, screamed for Margaret. Later, with me watching and smiling, he was bound and shipped off to a residential treatment facility. I'd done a lot in that campaign. Vivian appreciated my work. For New Year, she brought me back to the Shaw Group in Seattle. Shaw Group had a tradition. Each person in charge picked their own inner circle. Vivian chose me. Eleanor Shaw, seeing that I'd lost both parents, let me stay with the family for the holidays, and even took me on as a goddaughter. After the holiday, we returned to New York. Vivian began auditing the holdings. Grant Holdings was no small empire. There were plenty of subsidiaries. Vivian asked which one I wanted. She couldn't manage everything herself and wanted me to be vice president at headquarters while taking a significant equity stake in one of the subsidiaries, essentially handing it to me. I didn't hesitate. I chose the internet-related company. Vivian's look was teasing. I met her smile and confirmed her choice. A week later, I arranged my duties at headquarters, climbed into the car with my assistant, and drove to the place where I'd spent 7 years as an assistant. That's right. I'd bought the company where I'd once been an employee. I'd squandered 7 youthful years there. Now I was the boss, the one in charge. The company sign had been swapped for Shaw Group's branding. The receptionist didn't register me right away and was about to call my name when a colleague jabbed her elbow and said, "This is our new boss, the president." I smiled and waved, took the elevator up to the executive offices. My old desk now held Blake Turner, the one who'd spread rumors about me. He saw me, lowered his head, stood up, and greeted me with a practiced politeness. I scanned him once and said nothing. I wasn't going to fire him. Severance would cost an N+1, and I wasn't about to waste money on someone this despicable. Nor would I make life intentionally hard for him. With his actual skills, a normal workload would keep him occupied.